Harry's Wife, Part 96.16. Downward Spiral. MWX Foundation. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, enabling you to understand more about narcissism using prominent examples. And, of course, Harry's Wife is the gift that keeps on giving, enabling you to understand why she behaves in the way that she does and how she reacts to certain things as they occur. I predicted some time ago, utilizing my unrivaled understanding of narcissism, that the downward spiral would commence. Now, she's not exactly on Skid Row. It's not like she's running around with her backside hanging out and completely broke, but it's all relative. Things have not been going away as of late, and courtesy of a report that arises from Richard Eden for the Daily Mail, we learn of another aspect of this downward spiral. The headline reads, Eden Confidential, Harry's Wife and Harry's Charity in £130,000 bill to close the bucks. When the Duke and Duchess of Sussex quit official duties, the Queen ordered them to stop using the word royal. That, of course, would be challenge fuel, as it would be affecting Harry's wife's innate need for control by telling her she wasn't allowed to do something. And, of course, her narcissism operates on access all areas. She's allowed to do what she wants when she chooses, in the manner of her pleasing. The article continues. So, after publicly whining about how neither the Queen nor the government owned the word across the world, assertion of control indirectly, the California-based pair reluctantly changed the name of their charitable organisation from Sussex Royal to the MWX Foundation. Perhaps Harry got a little bit confused and thought he was getting on his BMW mongoose from his childhood. The new title apparently covered their surnames, Markle and Windsor, with the X thought to be a short form for Sussex. Now, however, MWX Foundation, of which Prince Harry was director, has been closed down, with the final liquidation report revealing that costs of £130,000 were incurred on winding it up. Documents published on Tuesday disclosed that the charity received bills of £92,849 in liquidators' fees and £37,734 in legal fees. The expense of the charity amounted to £65,181. This is because liquidation costs were agreed at £27,447 with liquidator Smith Williamson. A note to liquidators reports time costs exceeded the estimate due to the communications with the Charity Commission, the current and former trustees of various discussions, inquiries with third parties and protracted correspondence with HMRC to obtain tax clearance. Additional costs have been met by a third party. The remaining time costs are to be written off. It doesn't disclose the identity of the third party that has borne these costs. There was a £213,000 surplus from the closure. This was then paid in the form of a grant to a not-for-profit enterprise, understood to be Harry and Harry's wife's eco-travel firm, Travelist Limited. Liquidators state, in accordance with the terms of the grant agreement, we receive income and expenditure reports on the use of the grant's funds to show they are utilised in accordance with the charity's objects. The couple have started a new charitable foundation, Archwell, whose name originates from the Greek archi, meaning source of action, which inspired the name of their 3-year-old son, Archie. The Mail article concludes the Duke and Duchess of Sussex refused to communicate with the popular press. Slightly snippy remark there, but embodies, of course, the assertion of control by staying in a position of withdrawal. The creation of a charitable organisation, of course, which Harry's wife is involved in, is part of the assertion of control through facade management. Look at me. I'm kind, I'm empathic, I do good works. I read to impoverished children in Harlem. I soothe the fevered brow of those affected by the lamentations of this world. As we know, there is no genuine emotional empathy associated with her. She just believes that she's kind and caring. Much of her behaviour demonstrates to the contrary. The creation of a charitable arm, philanthropy, by certain narcissists is not uncommon, because it allows the assertion of control over people by demonstrating supposed good works. It allows the receipt of fuel because of people's responses to that. And, of course, it can allow the acquisition of character traits and often results in residual benefits, facade management, and, of course, knock-on benefits in terms of an income stream also. Repeatedly, people comment about the charitable adventures of the gruesome twosome in the United States by amazing many of their foundations, etc., and companies in Delaware, so that only 5% of the amount is actually used for charity, and the other can go on administrative costs, etc. Now, of course, the utilisation of the charity, and under the name Sussex Royal, embodied the grandiosity and the assertion of control and facade management. But now, of course, it had to be changed to a different name, which would have affected control. And the fact that it's actually now been wound up, incurring a cost, which is always the case when it comes to liquidation of a company, but the fact that it's been wound up is another aspect of the downward spiral. If all was rosy in the Sussex garden, then of course it wouldn't be necessary to halt this charity. It would be blossoming, blooming, but it's not. And instead, a decision has been taken for the purposes of winding this down, because it clearly is no longer working. This has been done for the purposes of appropriately conducting the business, of course. There's no suggestion of impropriety, not at all. It's all been done in an appropriate manner. But the point is this. The demise of this charity is just another aspect of the downward spiral for Harry's wife. The drying up of the invitations, the failure to penetrate the A-list, as mentioned previously, the fact that Pearl had been cancelled, the fact that still nothing has been provided in relation to Spotify, that there's all the continuing negative press, which has necessitated an attempt to reach out to Oprah for another bombshell interview, as discussed in parts passing, was all part of the downward spiral that I predicted some months ago, and it continues to gather pace. Of course, Harry's wife will not see it as such. She would just see it as a consequence of the interfering nature. If we'd have been allowed to keep it as Sussex Royal, it would have flourished, this charity. It's the royal family's fault. They've had it in for us since day one. Yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, will respond old Ginger Bollocks, allowing the indirect assertion of control as he agrees with his wife about the horrible nature of the royal family, scuppering their philanthropic ideals. I suspect the charity hasn't got anywhere as a consequence of 2 things. Lack of interest from people because they're starting to see through Harry's wife, one of the problems that arises for many narcissists, particularly where they're high profile, and their profile extends the abilities of their narcissism, as I pointed out previously, which is very much the case with Harry's wife. But also, Harry's wife is big on talking and very low on deliverance. She likes to talk a good game, but as we've seen, so little is ever delivered, and this is apparently going to be the case here. I suspect that it was all about, look, we have a charity, look how good we are, look how kind and empathic I am, the facade is managed, but then nothing is delivered, and it ends up being wound up with costs associated. Costs, of course, which he could bear, but the fact is, it essentially became redundant, because there was no role for it any longer. She'd lost interest in it, something that shows by the butterfly mind of the narcissist, leaping from one bandwagon to another, jumping from one corps célèbre to another. And the lack of interest also causes the narcissist to try and find something else instead. But the closure of this particular charity is another example of the downward spiral. This will not have Harry's wife scuttling away into a corner just yet. Instead, she will not accept accountability for his failure, and the blame will be attributed elsewhere. The royal family, as I've just mentioned, similar in the way that the 40-40 challenge didn't get anywhere, it would be the fault of somebody else. Somebody else didn't move it forward. Somebody else didn't action it in the way that they should. The blame will never fall at her door. But the rest of us, you're able to see through the prism of narcissism and the explanations that I provide you. This is all part of the downward spiral, the collateral consequences that occur when you have a mid-range narcissist out of her depth. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.